This is Apropos. Some filling stations have been reopening in Bamako and classes gradually resuming for the first time since an Al-Qaeda affiliate imposed a fuel blockade on Mali in September, prompting a crisis for its ruling military junta. The African Union is calling for an urgent international response, including intelligence sharing, to address the West African country's worsening security conditions. Residents say entire villages are being forced by jihadists to leave their homes. France 24's Caitlin Kelly has been meeting refugees at the border with Mauritania. She sent this report.
Just a few kilometres from here lies extremist-held territory, where fighting between the Malian army, its Russian allies and armed groups has intensified in recent weeks. And now here on the Malian border with Mauritania, hundreds of refugees are fleeing the violence. In late September, the Qaeda-linked Group JNIM announced it was cutting off fuel supplies to Mali, setting up checkpoints on main roads to stop fuel from reaching the cities and effectively crippling the country's economy. Around 20 kilometres from this point on the border, in villages like Lere, family describe living under blockade, with food and supplies cut off by the group. Refugees I've spoken to say JNIM ordered entire villages to leave, giving residents just a couple of days to leave or face life under their rule, or even death. Others told me they fled attacks from the Malian army and its Russian allies, Africa Corps, reporting drone strikes and ground attacks less than 30 kilometres from here. Some described their whole villages burnt and family members killed before their eyes.
On one side of us were the Jihadists and on the other Wagner. In the past we could hide, but now it's not possible. The girl sat next to me. Her father was taken and we've had no news since.
We hate Wagner for coming into our country, for slaughtering us on our own land without having done anything to deserve it.
In the past 2 weeks alone, more than 1,600 people have arrived here at this border point in Mauritania as the situation next door worsens, joining over 300,000 refugees already displaced into this region.
We are all scared. Our souls are not at peace because we are dying every day. We saw we were in danger of dying, so we decided to leave.
We left everything we owned behind, and we can't go back to recover any of it.
Many believe this is Mali's most critical moment since 2012, as fighting across the country between the army, its Russian allies and insurgents has already displaced millions. As one refugee described it to me, Mali has become a no-go zone.
Caitlin Kelly reporting. A Malian woman who'd regularly posted videos on TikTok praising the junta has been abducted by armed men and executed in a public square. State television is reporting that Mariam Cissé, who had nearly 100,000 followers on the video sharing site, was kidnapped by suspected jihadists in the northern town of Tonka on Thursday and later shot dead by her captors, who'd accused her of collaborating with the army. Well, for more, let's bring in Oluwole Ojewale, coordinator for West and Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies. Thanks so much for being with us on the programme this evening. Firstly, let's talk about this, the fuel blockade. It seems as though the situation is slightly easing from today. Just remind us what exactly triggered this and how has the situation been evolving over the past few weeks?
Thank you so much for having me. The experience in Mali in the last few days is a replica of what we've seen elsewhere, particularly in Syria and in Afghanistan, how the terrorists have demonstrated resilience to outlive governments or even foreign forces that have come to probably liberate those countries. And in the case of Mali in the past few days, I think what is happening is the fact that the jihadist JNIM in Mali is trying to replicate the same playbook that we've seen in other places by going for what makes for strategic attack, in the sense that going for this blockade offers them the opportunity to completely collapse the country or paralyze the economy. And I think the Malian government is also fighting hard to be able to save the country from sliding into chaos, which is the political objective of JNIM in the recent time, particularly as they have attempted to encircle Bamako.
And the government says as well it's doing everything possible to address this crisis. But what exactly does it intend to do, and how much of a threat do these jihadist groups pose more widely?
It's a very significant threat, not only to Mali, but to the entire West African country. For the past 2 years, when the global jihadism headquarters relocated to West Africa, Mali has been at the center of that. The implication is that if Mali falls, then other West African countries might not be able to rest on, might not have a safe haven in terms of the border porosity and how armed groups are actually crisscrossing and presenting themselves as a transnational security concern or threat in the region. So why the hub of their operation is the Central Sahel state of Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger now, the implication is that if they are able to overrun Bamako, then that is going to be an unprecedented experience in West Africa. And they could actually become emboldened to attempt to take other countries down. So that is the major challenge that we're facing in West Africa now. And if you now situate this in the context of the experience that Malians are having or that other West African countries are having, like I mentioned, it presents a serious sub-regional security crisis. In terms of what the Malian government, the military government has been able to do, I think last week I listened to the Prime Minister who said if it will take them to use spoon to scoop fuel from anywhere they can get it, they are going to get it to Mali. And experience of the last few days shows that fierce trucks are coming into Mali, but under force protection. And the question is that how sustainable is that? And how long are they going to be able to actually carry that out? Considering the fact that it is the same military that is engaged in guerrilla warfare across the country that has now been strategically deployed to begin to escort fuel into the country. So the military is going to be stretched thin, and then knowing fully well that the terrorist group are a very decentralized group, then they can begin to strike in other parts of Mali to also distract the military from the present task that they are engaging in, which is escorting fuel tanks and trucks into Mali. So it's a security threat that has multidimensional faces to it.
And why do you think this surge has been happening, this surge in jihadist attacks, since the junta came to power and we saw France removing its influence also in Mali?
Well, I think the number one factor is the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, Mali has emerged as one of the major headquarters of terrorist groups in the world. Foreign fighters are returning to Central Sahel now because it appears to be the place that provides them that ungovernable corridor or places where they can actually strike and carry out their criminal activities. The second fact is the fact that Mali has not been able to diversify its security cooperation. It focused solely on Russia. Russia is also engaged in serious war with Ukraine now, which possibly limited the ability of Russia to provide them the needed support that they need at this critical time. ECOWAS has already muted an idea of a standby counter-terrorism force, which requires about $5 billion to operationalize that. But the fact that Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have pulled out of ECOWAS, then it becomes very difficult to provide such security partnership, whether it is in air campaign or land warfare. The possibility of actually having that security cooperation is far-fetched now. So when you look at all these factors, coupled with the fact that the regime is the military government is preoccupied with regime protection, which is about securing Bamako and maybe a reasonable radius outside Bamako. What it means is that those terrorist groups can run amok in other parts of the country, and they're having a field day.
And the African Union, we heard from it today, calling for an urgent international response to what is happening in Mali. Would junta leaders actually, though, accept international assistance if it were to come from anywhere apart from Russia, given the influence that you've referred to there?
Well, I think regional economic bloc and starting with the African Union cannot afford to just be making statements from Addis Ababa. If they really want to help Mali, I will expect that they will have deployed an advanced team that will actually be engaging with the government of Mali and seeking areas that they can really support Mali in this critical time. And not only Mali, but the entire Central Sahel state, including Burkina Faso and Niger. But characteristics which is their peculiar nature, I believe that statement from African Union is probably just a secretariat attempt to show that they are also concerned about the development in Mali. But if they really want to get involved, it is to send an advanced team that engage with the Malian government and see the areas through which they can provide them that security cooperation or assistance. But, you know, Mali does not need to really look too far away. I think the starting point will be presented in two prongs. One is the fact that to start with, they need to begin to engage with the government of Ivory Coast and Senegal. These are the most consequential neighbors that Mali shares significant borders with. What sort of intelligence support and security cooperation can they actually enlist this country in terms of areas through which they can support them? And by extension, look in the direction of ECOWAS. Because what we can say reasonably is that the AES alliance is not working because each of those countries are bogged down with their own internal security crisis and terrorism. So if the alliance that they put together is not able to save any member of that alliance, they need to actually begin to look in the direction of ECOWAS and broaden the security partnership even with the Western establishment. If they would need to go as far as the United States of America, Canada, or even China, I think Mali needs all the security support that it can get now. And if AU is making that statement, they need to put their feet where they can really be seen to be supporting Mali, and is to provide that security support in terms of maybe mobilizing standby force, counter-terrorism standby force, if they are able to do that, and support Mali in this critical time. And here you can also leverage ECOWAS to actually provide that critical support now. But the challenge that Mali is facing, the number one thing is that Mali must come to the realization that it does not have the capability to subdue the terrorist groups that have encircled Bamako now.
Oluwole Ojewale, Coordinator for West and Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies. Thanks so much for being with us on the programme this evening.